Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the State of the Big Ten Address, the John Mackey Award winner from the University of Michigan, the one and only Jake Butt.
Thank you guys for joining. And, you know, as we wrapped up the regular season here for the Big Ten, I just have to say, what a year. I mean, what a year. Of course, changes on the horizon. There's no East versus West next year. We're adding 4 new members to our family. And this final regular season in the present Big Ten delivered on so many levels. Drama, suspense, debate, scandals. I mean, it was like a movie. And it finished the final game this past weekend the way it started. 2 of the best that the Big Ten had to offer. Ohio State versus Michigan. That game was filled with drama, with suspense, with some scandals. Some people have tried to say, is this a down year for the Big Ten? I would say it depends on your perspective. For Northwestern, wasn't a down year. Rutgers, even Penn State, not a down year. They're going to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. So for the Big Ten and all the drama and the buildup we had leading up to the final game, number 2 versus number 3, Ohio State versus Michigan, I will offer you my perspective on the state of the Big Ten. And it's just my perspective. The good guys won. The better team won. The best team in the conference has a chance to go win a national title. So my opinion on the state of the Big Ten, it's never been better.
The good guys won. Very interesting line there. I'll address that coming up at the top of the B block. But this is Red Corner, Blue Corner, right here on Stadium. Sad show for some. It's a very happy show for others. That is Jake Butt. He already had his intro, so I'm not going to do that. I'm Joshua Perry. It's time to get rocking and rolling right here. You want you to join in on this show as well, so you can scan that QR code, submit some of your content there. We want you to follow us on Instagram at @RedCorner_Blue Corner. But Jake, didn't you have a game to call that was kicking off right as Ohio State-Michigan was ending?
I had a game to call, and the final play happened. This is the final drive right here, JP.
Okay.
Marvin Harrison had caught a pass. They're driving down the field. Yeah. My producer's in my ear saying, hey, we got our open in about 2 minutes. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. It can't be, can it?
Are you sitting on the floor?
Yeah, there was a glare on the TV, so I couldn't quite see it. And I'm sitting down trying to take my notes there in front of it. So I'm trying to juggle 2 things at once.
It's very childlike Jake Butt right there, taking in the end of a very dramatic game. And Michigan did win that one, beat Ohio State 30-24. Let's start with the Michigan perspective on this one. What did the victory mean for the Wolverines?
It meant everything. I mean, gosh, where do you want to go with this? I mean, you could just start with the obvious. You finish your regular season undefeated. You have a chance to go win a Big Ten championship. They've talked about this as a national title team all year, and this was the biggest step in that direction. But what did it mean for everyone? I mean, let's just state the obvious as well. The drama, the back and forth, you know, understandably so. Many people outside the program said, you know, the sign-stealing scandals were a big reason why Michigan is where they were. I saw Harbaugh's record pre- and post-Connor Stallions, and there was a lot of justifications to say, hey, Michigan was really a big reason why they were good was because of the sign-stealing scandals. Well, the challenge for them was to go out there and prove it this weekend without their head coach against truly, I still believe it, one of the best teams in college football in Ohio State. And they got it done. So what does this mean? Well, it's a validation for where the program's at right now. To go win a hard-fought game without your head coach and Jim Harbaugh, and to get it done in the same fashion as they've done it in the past few years, with just toughness and execution down the stretch of the game.
I would say it's a validation of their belief in the program. And I think that whether or not you believe that the sign-stealing scandal impacts the game, the one thing that came out of the last 2 years from Michigan is the fact that they believe that they could win big ball games, the fact that they believe that they could be the king of the hill in the Big Ten Conference. And I think that was displayed in the way that these games were called by either one of the coaches on the sideline. For Sharon Moore, heading into that game, playing at home, you are a point spread favorite. And he treated that game like he was an underdog. Mm-hmm. The way that he went for those 4th downs early in the game so he could maintain possession of the ball is a huge thing to do when you feel like you're not going to be able to have enough drives to win the football game. Coming out of the first half, they were rushing, Michigan was, for 1.9 yards per carry. So what do they do in the second half? They bring in Orji, the second string quarterback, and they have that man running the football to spark the run game. It's a smart adjustment. They weren't hitting some of the pass plays that they wanted in the pass game. What do? You give the ball to Donovan Edwards for a halfback pass. These are things that coaches that want to win football games do. On the other sideline, you had a guy standing over there. It's 4th and 1 from the 46-yard line. What does he do? Punts the football. Ohio State couldn't punt the damn ball all day long. Didn't even flip the field the way that they needed to. It's the end of the first half. You got a 4th and 2, an opportunity to extend a drive and score a touchdown going into halftime knowing the other team's going to get the ball. What does this man do? He lets the clock dindle down, and all of a sudden he wants to call a timeout so a dude can go out there and kick a 52-yard field goal when the longest field goal he's ever made in a game is 47 yards. That's not a coach that is coaching the game to win it, and Michigan had that on the other side.
You hit some very big points to me where, the wrinkles Sharon Moore had in the game plan, right? Because this isn't another game. Their longest run of the day is on a quarterback power with one of their backup quarterbacks. Their longest pass on the game is from their running back, right? So, Michigan, when you heard the guys talk in the lead up to the week, they said, no, our season means nothing. Nothing matters if we do not win this game. It was everything. They had to treat this game different because it is different. I heard some players on Ohio State's roster, Kyle McCord, said, you know what? It's just a game at the end of the day. It doesn't define us.
The second quarterback in a row who said that, by the way.
That is insane to me. Even when, I was 0-4 against you guys, I would never say that. This is not just another game. And frankly, it's these little tweaks to me. I saw Michigan as a team with absolute willpower and refusing to be denied on their path to victory this past weekend. I don't think Ohio State played bad. I can't question those guys' toughness, but if I just look at the willpower displayed last weekend, it meant a little bit more to Michigan.
I'm not even going to go there because I've watched that tape multiple times, and I want to leave the players completely out of this because I think that there was willpower out there, and I think those dudes fought as hard as they could. I don't think they were always put in the best position to win that football game, and that's the part that's disappointing about me. I think the coaching impact on that game was as big as anything. These dudes went down 14-3 in the first half, and they fought back to tie that game up at 17-17. There was a 12-play drive that Ohio State had. They ran it 8 straight times at the end of that drive to score a touchdown when people say that they're not tough. This is about a coach. After having that success running the football, he wants to drop back and throw it. They went 3 and out in a 52-second drive because they didn't want to run the football anymore. That's bad coaching right there.
And really, for Michigan to finish the game the way they did, running the ball and milking the clock in the fourth quarter, that's also on coaching as well. You're exactly right. Okay, we do have a video submission, and it's someone who wants to help Joshua get through another Ohio State loss.
Joshua, my guy, what's up, partner? Hey, man, I'm here for you, okay? I get it, dude. I know what it's like to lose to your rival year after year, okay? I'll tell you, man, it eventually kind of gets better. The pain calluses a bit. Here's some advice. Just take all that anger, frustration you're feeling right now. Just take it and just bury it deep down inside. Don't let it see the 9 day. You know who your friend is? Well, me, but you know who else? This guy right here, okay? He's gonna keep you feeling good. And this is forgetfulness. This is how you make it through. So cheers, bud. Just remember, bud, we're in this together. Me and you. You got this.
T-Bob, I had a few of those and it didn't help. It doesn't help.
It maybe makes the darkness a little darker, huh?
It's bad.
It's just you spiral down there. Let's get back to this though.
Yeah.
What's next for Ohio State?
They got to take a full inventory of that program as assembled. And what I mean by that is I think that coming out of that game, you realize that they have good enough players to compete with anybody. I think that generally they have good enough scheme to compete with everybody. What they didn't have all the time was good enough execution and good enough decision-making from the sideline to win that football game. So I think that you have to look, number one, at the head coach and say, are you taking the chances that you need to take with a good football team? The answer was no. Well, how do you get there? The second thing that you have to ask is on the parts of our team where we are deficient, I would say quarterback and special teams stand out the most. What are you?
Offensive line.
But it was fine, though. It generally was fine, right? Like the quarterback, the first interception that he threw, that had nothing to do with the offensive line.
Right,
Had nothing
right.
to do with the offensive line. quarterback staring down a wide receiver, running a slant on a corner that has inside leverage, one of the best corners in the country, by the way, and throws it right to him, right? Ohio State ran that thing for 4 yards of carry, so did Michigan. I'm not going to hear about the offensive line wasn't good enough. They're not a great unit. They were fine. They did enough to be able to win that football game generally. I'm looking at on 4th and 1, maybe you don't trust your offensive line or you don't trust your quarterback because you didn't go for it.
Right.
The other thing I'm looking at too, special teams, it's been bad all year. Your punter probably didn't even show up in that game. You go out there and you want to kick a 52-yard field goal, that's bad. And the other thing is development. Because when I was at Ohio State, we didn't just recruit, we developed as well. And I'm looking squarely at a guy like Brian Hartline on that coaching staff right now. You got 5 stars everywhere. Emeka Egbuka looks like the same player he was a year ago. Julian Fleming is still dropping the ball. What about the young guys? None of those guys are in rotation. You got a 3-man rotation out of a room that's probably got 5 or 6 5-stars in there. G. Scott Jr. at the tight end position has not gotten better over his time in Columbus. They got to develop players better too.
Yeah, I know probably the biggest challenge here for Ohio State is you can't get better players. No one, you can only match Ohio State's recruiting. They've recruited as good as anyone going back a decade plus. So the talent is there. So I think about where Ohio State's at, and I think about where Michigan was at after the COVID year, a bit ahead of the 2021 season. And what happened is that offseason, something shifted where Coach Harbaugh and his staff said, you know what? I don't care if we lose. He literally said, we're going to beat Ohio State or die trying. 4th and 1, punting the ball or kicking a field goal and not going for it, whatever, early in the game. That's not dying trying.
Sure ain't.
That's not dying trying. And that, to me, is what needs to change this offseason. You got all the talent in the world. I'm telling you, as a Michigan guy, if he went for it on 4th down, that would have scared me. We have to start asking the questions, what can we do to strike fear in the opponent rather than play not to lose and make ourselves comfortable now?
And the last thing that I'll say is if I see another dude dancing or another dude talking about it's just another game, I'm going to snap. We are not the same.
Yeah.
That's not – it's – Anyway, we asked for your game day outfits this weekend, and one guy impressed us so much that we had to name him our weekend winner. This is Shea White showing off all the Ohio State gear he had. This is my guy, Shea, and I've actually known him for a while. We went to the same high school. He was my boxing coach for a while, huge Ohio State fan, so I got to check up on my man. He's probably not doing well right now.
I mean, he's looking clean, though, fresh, color coordinated, too. I see he likes the white shoes. I know both you and I like the white shoes as well.
Yeah, my man's got the swag out here. He always has, so we appreciate him participating. We want you guys to all participate, too. And since Shea White jumped in here, we're going to give him a $100 gift card for winning.
That'll help ease some of the burns a little bit, right? Maybe not. Okay, coming up, the Coach Carousel is in motion here in college football. Michigan State, they got their guy. We're grading the move on the other side of this break.
Ladies and gentlemen, with a rebuttal to the State of the Big Ten address, representing Ohio State, Joshua Perry.
Well, my rebuttal to what Jake Butt had to say is pretty simple. I agree with the majority of the things that he said. For people who are down on the conference, I would look at you and I would laugh. There were a lot of highlights throughout this season. We got some great teams in the conference. We had some teams rise above, no doubt. The one thing I do take issue with is the statement, the good guys won. They say cheaters never win, and that's not always true.
Joshua, I appreciate that, Joshua. We're going to move on to the rest of the conference, and it didn't take long for Michigan State to hire their next head coach. Jonathan Smith takes over the Spartans program after 6 years at Oregon State. JP, you had a chance to gather yourself. Can you grade this hire?
I hate today. This is the worst day of my life. It is the worst day of my professional life. I absolutely hate everything that's going on today. To grade this hire, I would say it's probably in the range of a B to a B+. I think that this is a very good hire. You're going with a guy in Jonathan Smith that was coaching at Oregon State. That is a program where you have to develop. It's really hard to recruit there. You're not going to have the top tier players, but you're going to be expected to compete like they've done the last few years. I look at Michigan State as a place that could probably get a better level of recruit, but it's still a little bit difficult to recruit there with the expectation of a program that's had success in the past. They made it to a college football playoff in 2015. The other thing that I love about this is you're hiring a guy that was at program number 2 in his state. You've got Oregon, you've got Oregon State. Well, what are you at Michigan State? You've got the University of Michigan and you've got Michigan State. You are program number 2, and he found a way to have success. And I think he's got to be able to leverage that underdog mentality to have success at Michigan State University.
No, I completely agree. And you look at his overall record, he was 34-35 at Oregon State. That doesn't tell the full story. There was a period of building the program, and then down the back half, he's been able to exceed expectations, and exceeding expectations is the name of the game. What I like about what he's done with Oregon State, a lot of his success, like, that's a tough football team. They've won in the trenches. I think your point about being the second fiddle in the state, understanding what that means, and how to navigate that, Oregon State versus Oregon, now Michigan State versus Michigan, is critical. I also think this hire comes at a great time where Oregon State has had a lot of success, and we've been talking about them in a college football national landscape. That has some type of inspiration for the program as a whole. It helps sell that image to future recruits.
Yeah, the other thing that he's done, too, is he created a hell of a home field advantage there in Corvallis. They didn't lose very many games at home. And I think when you're playing in East Lansing, when I played there, it was a hell of an environment to have to play in. The sidelines are real tight, and the fans are all liquored up and ready to go. And I think that he can bring that back to East Lansing, because the few times that I've been there in the last couple of years, it did not feel the same. That stadium was clearing out far too early. The fans were not involved whatsoever. He needs to have that back.
Yeah, the energy in the stadium was just down a little bit, you know?
It definitely was down. But we got to talk about a different opening in the Big Ten. Indiana starting its head coaching search after a firing of Tom Allen on Sunday. The Hoosiers just had 2 winning seasons in Allen's 8 years in Bloomington, which is kind of wild there. This is going to be a tough one, I think, for them to execute. But if you had a short list of candidates, who would you look at?
Can I take this from a different angle? Because whoever it is, this would be, let me provide some counsel, or at least offer an opinion. So Tom Allen got a $20 million buyout. Tom Allen's made a lot of money, right? Like, Indiana's going to shell out some level of cash. And as we just talked about with Jonathan Smith, it's about exceeding expectations. So if you're going to make a couple $1,000,000, I would go and say, hey guys, I'm going to take a pay cut per year, but I want this money to be allocated towards better recruits. You're not going to win without players. And if you do that, you're going to exceed expectations. I think the ultimate goal, there's better jobs down the line than Indiana. But if you can win there and exceed expectations, now you're in a great position.
Yeah, I mean, I think doing that, maybe asking for a bigger staff salary pool than just taking the money yourself makes a lot of sense there. If I had to throw out a couple of names, and I know this is one that they would not be able to get, but if they want to make a splash, and depending on what the NCAA has to say about what went on at Michigan, I'm looking right at Sharon Moore and the job that he's done. I'm saying, hey, would you like to run your own program in the Big Ten, young man? Because I feel like you're a guy who can elevate us to places we haven't been in a long time. The other guy who's in the Big Ten currently that I think would be an interesting name is Justin Fry, who's the offensive line coach and co-OC at The Ohio State University. He played his college ball at Indiana. The man owns a lake house in the state of Indiana. He loves his home state. Would be one to look at for sure.
Yeah, get a chance to get that head coaching opportunity. I mean, look, that's what happens is when your program has success as a whole, other programs come to pluck from that staff.
No doubt. Happens all of the time. But we're going to take our final break right here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. But coming up, haven't done it in a little while, but you know it's time for the conference clash. The guys from Rivals Down South are here to talk some playoffs. That's next. Conferences, they are clashing here on Red Corner, Blue Corner. Time to welcome in our guys from Rivals Down South. We got T-Bob Hebert and SEC Mike. How was the weekend, fellas? Because mine was terrible.
Cheers, Joshua. Like I told you, man, just drink those pain away.
I tried drinking it didn't work.
Well. Some will tell you that, look, drinking only leads to short-term relief and long-term it's harmful. And to that I say, just keep drinking, you know? If you just keep going, relief. You do more and more of it, and you just stay in that short-term relief.
I didn't even get that.
Yeah, you didn't drink enough then. You just got to keep going.
Tennessee beat Vanderbilt. Great weekend.
All right. Well, that's a good jumping off point. We got to talk about these rivalries here. What kind of impact did rivalry weekend have on the college football playoff picture? I'll start with the guys from Rivals Down South. T-Bob, if you want to kick it off.
Look, man, I mean, obviously Alabama's survival with the Gravedigger play 10 years after the kick six happens is it's a narrative echo that it reminds me of why I love sports as being live entertainment, because if you saw that written as a script, right, something like the kick six 10 years ago, and then this play here, you'd be like, that's BS. That's like Louis Lastic, pancaking 5 people on a play. He's just too fat. It wouldn't happen. And yet it actually did. Outside of that, Florida State surviving is interesting because, boys, what do we do? What do we do with Florida State? What do we do? Because it's a team game. We have to honor the team, right, if they beat Louisville. But would we sit here and I would take one-loss Washington, a one-loss Big 12 champion Texas, a one-loss UGA, then maybe lose the SEC. Like, there's a few options that I would take ahead of FSU. But I don't know. What would y'all do if they finish this thing out?
Yeah, I think if you're the committee, you're kind of hoping that they just lose this weekend so the ball isn't in your court, right? But, I mean, as much as this sucks for Florida State, you have to factor in the big picture. If they win like 50-60 to nothing or something like that, you would have to have like a Cardale Jones, Ohio State type moment.
Right.
But you have to factor it into the picture. I know it's unfortunate. There's a lot of unfortunate things in life. I would agree with you. If Georgia loses, they have to get in. Bama not getting in, but yeah, loser of the Pac-12 championship.
This is, I guess, where I'm at is like, and I know last year was a different scenario because there just weren't that many good teams to put in there, but they made an excuse to put TCU in after losing in a conference championship game. And I think we all understood what their fate would be in the college football playoff, and that's what happened when they got to the national championship game against UGA. And so I think the idea of the committee putting in a team that we don't think is that good is something that they've done before, but they don't have a reason to keep FSU out. Like, they wouldn't even have to make an excuse to put a bad team in this scenario. And quite frankly, I feel like nobody trusts the committee anyway, but to put in a different team over a 13-0 conference champion is foul. It is 100% foul. We've had terrible matchups in the first round anyway in the past. I think they just got to let that one ride.
Mike, what do you think, dude?
I would support it. SEC all the way. And it's almost like this thing's scripted because Alabama stays hot, Georgia stays undefeated, and I think Florida State, I think they're probably going to lose to Louisville. And I think if Alabama squeaks by Georgia, all of a sudden we got 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Well, what perfect timing for Rivals Down South then. Remember, youtube.com/Watch Stadium if you want to get involved. Look, Joshua, I know it's been a rough weekend. You may not have won the game, but for what it's worth, I think you, in my mind, just won the debate over Florida State. It is foul. It is a team game, okay? And Jordan Travis is awesome. But Jordan Travis did not win those games alone. He did not create that come up alone. They found a way to fight through Florida. If they find a way to fight through Louisville and they go undefeated and they're the champ, I think you gotta put him in that Final Four.
So what if it's the winner of the so let's just say it's Washington, Michigan, Bama beats Georgia. Does Georgia have to get in? Could you see Georgia bumping Florida State out in that scenario?
I mean, that's the insanity, right? Is that like all of us would say that we would take Georgia on a field, but that's the classic 4-team playoff conundrum is at what point is it most deserving versus maybe, and this is even more extreme than normal because normally when it comes to like us being subjective and saying, well, I think this team is better, we're splitting hairs. Without Jordan Travis, I mean, you lose your queen. Do y'all know what happens in chess when you hang your queen? When you mess up, you resign. Yeah. Like you immediately resign. So it's the most extreme case of that you could possibly fathom.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious. I low-key want to see it just to see what the committee would do. And I know it's the last team of the last year, the 4-team iteration of this college football playoff. But I'd love to see the committee have to make that decision.
let's go with the Nick Saban argument. Who would they favor on a neutral field? I mean, everybody would favor even Georgia, one loss over undefeated Florida State. Let's turn it back on Nick Saban. He would want no part of Georgia 2.0. So I'd put Georgia in.
Well, look, Mike, you'll never get me disagreeing with Alabama having to play a team again in the Natty and losing, given that that's exactly what those bastards did to me all those years ago. How about this, boys? Have we learned any scheduling lessons from looking at this season? And granted, this probably changes in a 12-team playoff where people can have a little more wiggle room and room for error, but I mean, you look at Michigan, you look at Georgia, they're 1 and 2 in the country. And granted, even though some of those schedules appreciated in value, for the most part, we're looking at 2 of the easier schedules in the country in a lot of different ways. Like in this most recent era of college football, Joshua, were teams wrong not to go challenge themselves, a la Ohio State, Notre Dame?
No, I don't think they were wrong. I think it sets up for them. You have to win, obviously, the big matchups there, but if you do that, you're going to be in, right? And I think that's the way you have to do it for some of these teams is create the easiest path. I would also look at a team like Ohio State, though, and I would say that they weren't totally wrong doing what they did with their out-of-conference, because as we start to look at chaos scenarios, there is one where Ohio State gets in. I would hate to see it because they certainly did not earn it, but they did give themselves a little bit of leeway by having that Notre Dame win on their schedule. So I think it works both ways. Like, if you're going to be a team that doesn't schedule anybody tough, just win all your games. Like, what am I going to say? You're a winner. It's all good. But I think the margin of error does increase if you do have the more difficult schedule.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we've just incentivized, like actions follow incentives, right? And we time and time again, what's been incentivized is to have the easiest schedule possible. At Michigan at this point, you have 2 of the best wins in college football, certainly, right? You still have to win those games, but they were fresh. They've been healthy, right? That's the advantage of having an easier schedule. Now, let's go forward and say the Big Ten has 1 more conference game than the SEC starting next year, right? But for the SEC, why would they change that? The only reason why is the matchups next year in the Big Ten Conference. It is going to be a gauntlet, an absolute gauntlet. The TV money is going to explode. But, how do you measure that versus, a much higher likelihood of getting more teams in the college football playoff?
I'll tell you what, the money explodes when you got teams in the CFP, too, because that pays as well.
Right.
Yeah, and the best example,
go ahead,
Texas. Mike. Texas scheduled at Alabama, won the game. If Texas beats, whoever they're playing, Oklahoma State, Alabama beats Georgia, I think they'd put Alabama in over Texas, and I don't think that's right, but I think that's what they do. So I would never schedule a tough non-conference game again.
Great point.
That's true. I guess they weren't really rewarded for it as we maybe thought that they would be. But again, like we mentioned, all bets are off. 12-team playoff, TV takeover, and eventually the SEC will get to 9 games when ESPN pays for a 9th game. Pretty much had that confirmed interviewing LSU Athletic Director Scott Woodward a few months back, where he just straight up alluded to, look, the House of Mouse didn't want to open up the pockets, which, look, I'm going there next week, Mickey, and you're going to be reaching in my pockets. You do every damn time, okay? In Vegas, they say the house always wins. In Florida, the mouse always wins.
Yeah, enjoy your $6 bottles of water down there.
Yeah, I mean, bro, it ain't even just – it's literally monetizing emotions. And you know what? I'm a sucker. I love it. I form core memories. I have tears streaming down my face watching the fireworks with my 5-year-old on my shoulder. It's the only thing that makes me feel better after Alabama does some crap again. Boys, y'all have a great day.
No.
And we'll holler at you tomorrow. CFP day tomorrow. Y'all take it easy. That is Red Corner, Blue Corner. Well, speaking of Gravedigger, Mike, look at that. Oh, my God. Am I Nick Saban? After an entire season of trailing in the picks competition here on Rivals Down South, me, you, AJ McCarron, AJ kicked 6 in it at the end, and after a 6-1 week, in which my only loss was Louisville, the regular season winner is your boy at 40-10 with AJ and Mike at 39-11. Let's friggin' go, dude! Yes.
This is,
Mike,
I mean,
how's it
more
feel?
More than Tennessee losing at Florida or getting stomped by Alabama or Georgia. This is definitely the most painful loss that I have suffered this college football season. I'm not going to lie. How do I lose to a numbskull like you?
Yes, look at all this chest hair and just recognize that this is who you lost to right here. pure man, the ideal male body, ridden with shingles, alcoholism, and just a complete lack of melanin anywhere in my skin or genetic makeup. Speaking of crazy finishes, bruh, how about the Iron Bowl? I think Dan, our producer, wrote it best. I don't even know where to begin with this one. I mean, it's so unreal that this happened, how it happened, on the date that it happened, 10 years after the kick six, maybe one of the longest odds endings we've ever seen. Hugh Freeze, the Saban killer, on the edge of somehow doing it again. And it's like, when you see the muffed punt, you're like, oh, there it is. You know, Auburn blows it. But like, okay, but that's like a normal way to blow it. To go through the muffed punt, to make the plays, to make them spend all of that time, and to get the luck of the fumbled snap, Jalen Milroe not picking up and scrambling, but picking up and tripping, and then having 4th and 31, a 99.9 win expectancy, and then you lose the game at home in Jordan-Hare. That is the type of loss that will ruin your Christmas, Mike. If you're an Auburn fan, that's the type of loss that takes years to get over.
Right. And anytime there's a play and it immediately has a name, that's when you know it's bad. I've heard the mill throw. I've heard the nightmare in Jordan-Hare. I've heard, of course, when you can call any of those in Alabama, and Auburn fans are going to know what that is for the rest of their life. Just a devastating way to lose a game 10 years after the kick six. I still can't believe it happened. And I'll tell you what, T-Bob, after all this, I mean, I think I'm flipping my pick. I think Alabama's a team of destiny, and I think this is going to be the play that's remembered for all time. I think Alabama's winning the national championship.
Mike, don't do this. Let's not lose sight. Look, yes, was I wrong about the full depth of the Taliban power of Jordan-Hare and Auburn? I was, right? I didn't even think it could pull it off, and they were damn close. This is still a team that just lost by 21 in New Mexico State, okay? This is still a flawed Alabama team. This is still a Georgia football team that is the most complete team in the entire country. I am not a believer. However, I will say this. I did find it pretty fascinating that, of course, Nick Saban literally practiced this scenario every single week in practice, where apparently they get together, everybody runs different routes in the end zone, Milroe scrambles around, then he throws it, and the DBs, smart, correctly, not wanting to get anybody injured, they let the receiver catch it. You know, so they're even used to completing it. And Isaiah Bond made it happen by kind of pushing the corner up a bit, knowing the corner's back to the ball. He's like, oh, I got to come back to it. And then, no, he falls back into it. An unreal play. Mike, what did you think about the defense that Auburn chose to run there? Russian 2, spying 1, in my opinion, really spying 3. Not a single player trying to get after Jalen Milroe.
Right, and I don't know if you caught this, T-Bob, but Hugh Freeze today admitted he did not go to sleep on Saturday. He didn't deserve sleep because I know he's an offensive-minded guy, but he had to be on the headset for that call. He had to know what was coming. I mean, it was just idiotic to have basically, like you said, a two-man rush, but really a no-man rush, just spying. I mean, you want Milroe to throw or to run in that play. Yeah. We already seen it in this game where he'd take off, he'd pass the line of scrimmage, he'd come back and throw it. That's exactly what you want him to do. It was completely nonsensical. Anytime a defense gets this conservative, they deserve to lose. And I still, for the life of me, will never understand why anybody calls a 3-man rush, nonetheless 2-man rush with the game on the line.
Yeah, again, I'd qualify it as a no-man rush. And the thing is, like, if you just kind of look at it from a math standpoint, right? What's the more likely way to lose? And a quarterback pulling off a 31-yard scamper to the end zone through all 11 on defense, that's much less likely than throwing a ball into the end zone. You see it all the time. A lot of hurt in that locker room.
And what is Alabama's biggest weakness? It's the damn offensive line. Bum rush those guys, forcing a quick throw. You win that game. It's just the height of stupidity.
And look, I know the kick six 10 years ago hurt, right? It stopped Alabama from winning a third natty in a row. But that's just like a billionaire losing a couple million, right? Auburn had a lottery ticket to make this entire year worth it, to kick off the Hugh Freeze era with a signature win that would echo through the next decade of football. And it was all snatched away with the gravedigger in his perfect. It is beautiful. It is why I love college football, even if it was those dirty Alabama Crimson Tide on the receiving end of the good this time. Still to come on Rivals Down South, we got coaching news, boys. It's that time of year. We got hirings, firings. We'll get to it all next here on Rivals Down South. Welcome back to Rivals Down South. YouTube.com/Watch Stadium. You're going to get the chat. Our guy, Rusty Gorman, talking about Auburn, says, you never get over a loss like that. Ever. You just live with it. And Rusty's so right, Mike. You know what that is? I heard this analogy listening to an episode of Hardcore History. It's like getting hit with a piece of shrapnel. And it doesn't go away. Eventually, it just scars over. But it's with you forever. And like when it rains or it's cold, you feel it. That's going to be Auburn fans every time they remember the nightmare in Jordan-Hare. Speaking of nightmares, A&M fans thought they were living through one Saturday night when it was suddenly announced that Mark Stoops was probably going to be the next Texas A&M head coach. I want to be clear. I don't believe this. And I know there's a lot of reporting that says that I'm wrong, but I still don't believe it, okay? This is Jimmy Sexton, David Blaine level street magic. Call that man Jimmy Copperfield. He's saying, look over here, look over here. Oh, this has definitely happened. All he's trying to do is remind Kentucky fans that they need to sit down and be damn happy that they pay Mark Stoops $1 million per regular season win, okay? Be thankful for what you have, Kentucky fans. You beat Louisville. You're 3-5 in the SEC. And at Kentucky, that's good. And it's worth $8 million a year. I think this would have been a god-awful hire. I don't even believe in general democracy, given that I kind of think people are dumb, including myself, lead among that. But in this case, the people were right. Mike Elko is a home run compared to Mark Stoops.
Yeah, maybe Ross Bjork looked around and said, hey, I'll hire the former Jimbo Fisher assistant, the blue and white team there. Everybody signed off on it. They thought it was Mike Elko until they realized it was Mark Stoops, and they threw a fit on the Texags message board over there. But yeah, give me Mike Elko. I know he's not been coaching near as long as a head coach as Mark Stoops, but he's significantly better in his short time. I think the 8-4, 9-3 jokes for A&M would have returned with a vengeance. They never would have done any better under Mark Stoops. I think with Mike Elko, the amazing turnaround he did at Duke, all the pieces to be successful at A&M. They don't need a flashy hire. They just need a consistent, tough-nosed coach that can get things going, be a CEO, something that Jimbo failed miserably at. Awful coach to great coach. I think Texas A&M nailed this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I think it's a deal where, okay, they're similar in that I think they both have high floors, right? Like, I don't think Stoops would do an awful job. Like, I don't think the bottom would fall out or anything. But Stoops is a known commodity in the SEC. And so if it's a high floor, it feels like you already know where a ceiling is. And we've talked about it. 2 wins over SEC teams that have finished with winning records in 10 years. Another 7-5 record this year. And granted, A&M's better. But look at but Mike Elko, again, in the same vein, I think he has a high floor. If you look at taking over a 3-9 Duke team, going 9-4, but his ceiling feels potentially even higher, and it's an unknown, right? And you needed to take a bit of a risk. Last time out, you went safe. You caught a falling knife in Jimbo Fisher. This time, you got a potential riser, and I think that's the right play here. And really, when you look at Elko, the head coaching success at Duke, I know it cooled off a little bit with the end of this year, but like that was the last thing he had to prove, because otherwise he's been successful everywhere he's been, especially when he was defensive coordinator at Texas A&M. So I think A&M nailed this. I say good on Lucci and the Texags Army for avoiding Stoops, even though I still think that's Jimmy Sexton playing us all. And I'm not so sure how I feel about Jeff Levy at Mississippi State. I don't hate it, okay? Because Jeff Levy, Oklahoma OC, no head coaching experience. And if I look at the last 4 state coaches, I've seen it go both ways, right? Dan Mullen was a coordinator. That worked out great. But then Zach Arnett and Joe Moorhead did, and, well, they were coordinators as well. That worked out horribly. Mike Leach was a head coach. That worked out great. How do you feel about Jeff Levy?
I think it's the ultimate swing for the fences type move, and you kind of hit on it right there. I mean, the way college football now, you have to have high-flying offense, someone that can identify quarterbacks. Jeff Levy can do all those things, but we have no idea what he can do staffing. We have no idea what he can do recruiting. We have no idea if he can be a CEO. None of these things. And what we have seen, he made news at Oklahoma. Why? Because he had Art Briles on the field after the game, and he made no bones about it. He's going to stick near Art Briles. So the one PR time he's had at Oklahoma was he failed miserably. So again, that may not derail him at Mississippi State. Hopefully he learned from that, but I don't know. For the life of me, T-Bob, I would never hire a coach in the SEC that does not have head coaching experience, because we gave the last guy 10 games and he was out. There are no training wheels in this league. You get it done or you're gone. And I think it's more likely than not Jeff Levy's gone within 2 years, because I don't know that he's qualified for a job of this magnitude.
Yeah, if I'm a Bulldog fan, I'm going to need it. No. Like, I'm going to need some reporting that said that Jamie Chadwell and really Fritz said no, if you want me to feel good about this. Also, here's my favorite part about the entire hire, Mike. He had a quote that sounds exactly like when someone asks me, like, oh, hey, do you know Mike Johnson? And I don't know Mike Johnson, but I just want to pretend like I do because I don't want to go through the whole rigmarole. They asked me, why was State right for you, Jeff? He said, for a long time, State was a great, cool, awesome place to go to school. Cool is State. Swag is State. Close quote. Guys, great, cool, and awesome are the most substanceless adjectives in the entire English language. It's what you say when you don't know or have anything else interesting to say. It's your fallback. It's your safe words. That is a bigger red flag than anything else I've seen. Then again, he did say, hey, we're going to score a lot of points. So whatever. If you do that, then it's all good. Still to come.
Well,
has that coaching carousel coast come to a stop, or is there one more move to be made? Message board Monday. What are Gators fans saying about Sunbelt Billy? Next on Rivals. Welcome back to Rivals Down South. Remember, you can always submit your takes and videos to watchstadium.com/submit or in the YouTube chat, youtube.com/watchstadium. See if the expert says, I'll be honest, I do kind of enjoy seeing college football in stadium tiers. It just shows the passion, right? And so do college football message boards. And, well, Mike, the Florida Gators losing to the Seminoles in a battle of the backups. Max Brown couldn't quite overcome Tate Rodemaker despite a hot start. Now lost 5 in a row. They're going to miss out on a bowl game for the first time since 2017. Does Billy Napier survive?
I give him a 10% shot, T-Bob. I mean, they're undisciplined. They play 11 Power 5 opponents next season. Give me Deion Sanders as a next head coach.
Yes.
A year from now. They're going to be bringing him in to stick it to Florida State.
Funnily enough, I'm with you, Mike. Like, I would hold on because Deion's not going to leave Shadur and Shiloh and everybody this year, not Travis Hunter, but next year, yeah, I'm right there with you. Mike, I think that may be a year too late, though, if we ask Gator fans. Here's a little post from Message Board Monday. First one from Arizona Gator 11. Napier's the worst coach we've had in my lifetime, without a doubt. I think I actually hate him more than Mullen and McElwain, which I didn't think was possible. This is crazy to me because Mullen and McElwain won. Like, I know things went awry and I understand the dynamics, but yeah, if you hated them, of course you hate Billy Napier. It's all the bad without even any of the winning.
Right. I mean, there's a high standard at Florida. We have lowered the standard under Billy Napier. I don't know what in the world we're doing. We're hanging our hat on recruiting rankings, for God's sakes.
Mr. Baseball 2934, Ron Zook got fired for only winning 8 games. This guy can't hold Zook's jock strap. Ooh, I love a good can't hold the jock strap. It's so old school. It's so pointless because, quite simply, there's nothing more simple in the world than just holding another man's underwear. And yet fans are doubting that Billy Napier could do even that with Ron Zook, of all people.
Yeah. I can't wait till Napier's back on Alabama staff as an analyst in about a year and a half.
Yeah, that's the halfway house, right? Rowdy Reptile want to shake up the college football world and immediately change the perception of the program? Hire Urban, if offered. Listen, I don't know if that would change the perception of the program in the way that you want. Right? Am I crazy here, Mike? Does Urban have that kind of positive juice anymore?
Yeah, you sell your soul, you hire Urban Meyer, but they're desperate right there in the swamp.
And look, sometimes to go forward, you got to go back. Unless you're me. Then you just go forward and you win the picks competition and beat SEC Mike and beat AJ McCarron. Suck it, boys. That's right. T-Bob on top. Hey, we'll see you for a brand new episode of Rivals tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you then.